Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on a Monday. We are glad that you tuned in. And today we're going to be talking about the post-spawn funk. Everybody knows spawn's getting it's waning towards the end. Fish are done. And everybody talks about the fact that fishing gets a little tough for a couple of weeks while those bass are recuperating from the spawn. Well, guys, I've got some facts and some things for you to think about this whole so-called post-spawn funk that I want you to think about. And then I've got 4 tips for how you can make that whole notion of a post-spawn funk kind of go away and you can still catch fish during this time of year. Stick around, guys. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. So let's talk about what this post-spawn funk is. The fish spawn, they get done spawning. Yes, there's no doubt that puts a lot of stress on both the males and the females. And they do go into kind of a short period of time where they are just resting. But I do want you to consider this fact. During that time, and it's usually about a week period of time when an individual fish is spawning, they are really not eating very much at all. They have fed up pre-spawn. They go into that spawning mode where they're building nests, finding mates, going through the spawn itself. And yes, they are going to, after exerting that amount of energy, they are going to go to the nearest dock, go to the nearest piling, sit there and just kind of rest. But that isn't going to last very long. And at that point, they haven't eaten and they need to eat. And so what you want to do in this period of time is remember the fact that, number one, not all bass spawn at the same time. So yes, that individual bass that we're talking about might be in that funk, but there was a wave of bass that spawned much earlier and they're through that and they're feeding because they haven't eaten in a while. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind is the fact that there are always fish that instead of moving to summer deep water areas, they stay local in that shallow water. And so those fish that are resident fish that have spawned are just moving to a closer residence still in that shallow water area. So if there's a spawning flat over here and a lily pad field over here, they may just move right from the spawning flat over to the lily pad field because that is where they're going to take up residence for the entire summer. And so they really haven't moved very far and they're ready to eat. So keep in mind that there's the possibility of catching those resident fish that are shallow. The third thing to keep in mind is that male fish who have just finished spawning are still in the process of guarding those fry for a short period of time. And so catching fry guarding fish, the males that are guarding fry, is still a possibility right in and near those beds. And they are still aggressive when it comes to protecting that fry. So you've got your fish that maybe spawned early and are already into their deeper areas. You've got resident fish that stay shallow, and you've got fry guarders. And then along with that, you've got another class of fish that when the spawn is over, those fish, before they move to deeper water, take a little detour and they go and take a look at those bluegill beds because the bluegill typically spawn after the bass. And so bass just finishes up spawning, has recuperated a little bit, ready to get the feed bag on and fill up a little bit after that tough spawn, and not very far away are these bluegill beds, and that provides an easy opportunity for them to feed and feed good on bedding and spawning bluegill. So what do? They take up residence on a log or a stump that's near a bluegill bed, and they sit there and wait for a stray bluegill to come by, and that's the way they deal with that. And granted, when those bluegill beds dissipate, they'll move out deeper or they'll be a resident fish and stay shallow. But that bluegill bed detour in the post-spawn is a fourth place to, kind of look for catching fish. So I agree that an individual fish will go through a post-spawn funk when it comes to needing to rejuvenate their strength before they start to move to where they're going to live during the summer and before they put the feed bag on. But that is one fish. And I think that's what gives us that myth that there is a post-spawn funk, because so many fish are in different stages of where they are. Some fish spawned sooner, they're already in deep water. Some fish are recuperating from the spawn. Some fish may still actually be spawning. Some fish have taken up residency in shallow water. Some fish are guarding fry. And so there isn't a large quantity of fish doing the same thing at the same time. And if you remember a video that I did earlier in the year, when we were talking about pre-spawn, in that situation, there were large numbers of fish that were moving from deep water to shallow water to spawn. And we were getting kind of accustomed to seeing these large groups of fish. And then during the spawn, large groups of fish up shallow. Now all of a sudden, the numbers of fish are not yet grouped back up like they will be in the summer, where they'll be grouped up in deep water on ledges or in deep grass beds or grass lines or weed lines, things like that. They'll group up again, but right now there's so many fish that are doing different things. Some are fry guarding, some are taking up residency shallow, some are going deep, some are still spawning. And so it makes us as an angler feel like, there's no real, significant number of fish doing any one thing, and we get into thinking that, the fish just aren't biting right now. And I don't think that's really the truth. I think they're just spread out. So what we need to do is be aware of what they're doing. Are we gonna fish the fish that are resident? Are we gonna fish the fish that are fry guarders? Are we gonna go deep and fish the fish that spawned early and are already out deep? You pick which one you're going to do and then target those. What I'm gonna do a little bit later on in the week is talk about baits that you can use specifically for each of those conditions. So I hope you'll stick around the rest of the week. We also have a very exciting Underwater Wednesday episode with a new bait that I can't wait to see in action in the pool. So look forward to that coming up. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. As always, if you haven't, please hit the subscribe button. Join us in being a part of the Mark Fisher community, and we will see you again tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Take care.